Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of Crypto Basel. I am your host, Lady Phoenix, joined by Coldy and Gemini Rising, aka Krista. We're excited this morning to talk to you about the movie making process, raising money, aka crypto, for your film, and putting that film on the blockchain. Krista and Coldy will walk us through that process. She'll give us the behind the scenes of how all of this came together and how she's going about launching her film. Krista, we're super excited to have you today. Thank you so much for joining us. Coldy, take it away.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Lady Phoenix. Krista with Gemini Rising, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a super pleasure. The name of your film is I Want My NFT. Is that correct?
Correct.
Awesome. Yeah. So I've come into contact with her through the process of doing this film, and it's been amazing to me hearing about how you're doing this film. It's not a traditional, it's using blockchain. There's a lot of different connectivities with Web3, and I'm super curious to hear from you how that process has been working, because I know you have a history of being a film documentary maker in your career. So I'd love for you to get some background and just hear about that.
Okay. Before we start, Vandal, who wasn't going to be on this call, says he made a mistake with his meeting and he can join.
Great.
So
awesome.
Just so you know, he might come in. If he can figure out how to get in, he will. So while he's trying to figure that out, I will tell you a little bit about myself and Jason Vandal and how we ended up making this film. My background is actually in art. I went to the Ontario College of Art and Design in the 80s, and I was making video art and not making a very good living off of it. My art was shown all over the world, and I got paid 50 Canadian dollars each time it got shown. And I would get grants and things like that, but it's pretty hard to live off of, $15,000 a year. So I started working in the documentary film industry as an editor, because I was one of the first people that knew how to use nonlinear editing at the time. And I kind of worked my way up and ended up directing films as well. And then I started my own company. So that was in the early 90s, and that's what I've been doing since. Vandal is my son. He told me about crypto and blockchain in 2017, and I read about it, and I really liked the idea of that. I was sort of the owner of my own money, and I didn't have a middleman and all that kind of stuff. And I invested at the all-time high, of course, like a lot of people did, but I stuck it through, and I'm here now, thankfully. And last year, Vandal told me about NFTs, and I looked into that, and I really liked the idea. So I started making art again, which I hadn't been doing. I mean, I guess my artistic stuff came through my documentaries and things like that, but I started actually making art on the blockchain. So we started talking. Vandal lives in Malaysia. He's here with me now. I'm in British Columbia. Because of COVID, mainly, he had to leave, and it's just kind of hibernating over here. And he started talking to me about we should make a documentary about the space, because I have the knowledge of doing it, and he knows a lot about the space. So we started talking seriously when he came, and started planning everything out, and who we were going to interview and all that kind of stuff, and how I wrote the treatment and made the budget, and he worked on the white paper for the blockchain side of things. And that's where we are now. We've already started interviewing people for the film, and that's how far we've gotten so far. So
that's exciting. Have you guys worked on projects in the past before, or is this your first foray?
Well, Vandal did, he does music, and he did a piece where he asked me to do the artwork for it, which I did. That's on the blockchain. But before that, he's been in a lot of my videos, in my video art as a child. He made a film himself that we kind of did together in a way, because I kind of egged him on. He was, I don't know, like 8 or something like that.
Sure.
It's called The Sea. And we went on a long trip by car from Toronto, where we lived, and drove all the way down to Guatemala, actually. But when we were in Mexico and stuff, he was filming. So he did this project for school. So we kind of did that together. And then we just did another piece together recently for the blockchain called Flow, where Vandal did the music and I did the video. And that's going to be featured at Art Tech Miami on Friday.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
So, but this is our first major thing that we're doing together. So
sure, that's awesome. So I know part of this, obviously you have a background in film, early editing, which is, I would love to dive into that. Just super quickly, what was editing like when you were doing that type of editing? Are we talking splicing film and putting it together? I don't know. Like, what's...
When I went to school, I did film as well as video. And before that, I was, drawing and painting and things like that. I'm left-handed. I always had this problem that I would smear the paper with my hand. And the film, I was doing Super 8 film, so it's like this small, and you have to like edit it. And the same thing with sound. I did a lot of sound loops. Now, I was kind of at school, we had a sound studio, and I was the monitor at the studio. And I used to do these loops, and this is like the 80s, right? So I did these loops that were tape, and we'd have all these tape players around the room. So I'd have this giant string of tape, audio tape, that went all the way around the room, and I played it, and that was the loop. Like,
wow.
And even when I started in school in video, we still had reel to reel at the time. So then we got the beta tapes and stuff like that, and there was no nonlinear editing. It was all linear. So you had to kind of plan everything out beforehand and make sure that, if you made if you put something in the middle and you didn't like it, you had to take everything out. So when non-linear editing came out, I was like, yeah, and I went out and I learned how to use the thing, and it's a game changer. I mean, things like the smartphone, and that's even, that's a game changer now, but like at the time, non-linear editing for someone like me was a game changer. Yes.
Yeah. So when you bring that into, current day technology, how are you guys producing it now? What type of, are you using video cameras? I know a lot of times you can now use like DSLRs. The quality is so good. Some people are using iPhones. What's your mode?
We're using an iPhone and
Cool.
and a phone. Like here comes Vandal now, filming our interview using the phone.
We're on Instagram.
We're on Instagram right
now. Hey, how's it going?
So we're basically I was looking into buying a camera, but the quality on my phone is so good that we're just going to use the phones. So most of the film is going to be shot online. Like the interviews that we're doing are going to be shot on Zoom. And then the other stuff that our interactions are going to be shot on the camera. We just made our first promo video, and that was shot with my iPhone.
I love it. Yeah. And, it makes sense. I mean, I got to imagine you have a worldwide, assortment of people that you're interviewing. So that sounds like its own, COVID story, but, it kind of has to be that way no matter what, since you're talking with people probably on all continents. And, what's that, tell me about the movie, tell me just about the film itself. Like, how are you explaining things, or what's it about?
Okay, well, it's about NFTs, specifically art NFTs, because we're both artists. And it's about our journey. Like, I usually, when I make a film, I'm behind the camera. I don't like being in front of the camera. I don't know why, but I'm practicing and I think I'm getting better at it, but I'd rather be behind the camera. So this is kind of new for me to be actually in a film that I'm making.
Sure.
But that's how we decided to do it. We thought it would be interesting to follow our journey. Like, it's not like, that's sort of like the spine of the film, right? It doesn't mean that we're going to be in it mostly, but it's sort of the spine. It's our journey discovering things. So what we did is we made a list of people that we wanted to talk to. For me, it was like other artists whose art I liked, and along with the platforms, the advocates and the critics, as well as the collectors. So we have a wide array of people. We're not going to be using narration. We want to have the talking as the narration. And so the way that I see it, and the way that I usually work anyway, is that I have different threads or different stories. And in this case, we have like over 30 people that we're interviewing. So each one of those is a different thread to the film. And my job, because I'm going to be editing it, not totally on my own, we're trying to have somebody else help me, but my job is going to be weaving all those threads together to make a really interesting tapestry, which is going to tell the story about what is an NFT, what is art even, and just like, we wanted to make it for people who didn't know anything about the space. And we figured that, excuse me, that NFTs are kind of like a really easy way for people to understand what blockchain and the NFT space is really about. It's because it's a tangible thing, and people still need tangible things. And when you talk to people about money, like if we just made a film about cryptocurrency, for example, I think a lot of people would fall asleep, because as soon as most people, they talk about money, their eyes glaze over. When you do your income tax, your eyes glaze over. So it's like, this is a interesting way and a visually beautiful way to tell the story about what this space is about and what blockchain is all about. So
That's awesome. Yeah, that'll be super exciting. And I think, there's so many people, us, probably most of the people here watching have been around that, and it feels like second nature to us. Just even, as soon as you talk about something like a MetaMask, you're going to lose 99% of the audience. It gets pretty nerdy pretty quick, but I think that having it in a movie like you're doing is going to help kind of open up that casual, quote unquote, person who might be into creativity and art, but wouldn't take the time to dive into what crypto is, or the nuances. And I think it's super needed for where we're at. There's been a story that has progressed over, NFTs, I guess, have been around for, maybe, if you want to be generous, like 5 years, if you want to talk about all the way back to like rare pepes and stuff like that. But I think taking that to where we're at right now, there's already, like, I don't even know how you'll fit that into one movie. There's a lot to go on. So that's a awesome undertaking. And I think that, I can't wait to see the movie. I'm so excited for what you're doing. I had a similar, I did one movie back in the day, and it was super fun. And I was like, man, we need to do a crypto movie. But at the same time, I'm not a filmmaker like you. So it just kind of went off into the ether. And, I'm glad it's in like good hands, like somebody like you, it like knows how to do it correctly. So it's super, super exciting. So tell me more about, how you're using Web3 in the movie itself, or in the making of it.
Okay, so Web3, not just being online. Being online is just filming most of it into space and things like that. But we obviously, need to fund the film. So we've got initial investors that we found through the space that want to promote the space as well in terms of, using the ecosystem. Also, we're creating, well, first of all, actually today is the first day of the Gitcoin grant, which we've applied for. So that's kind of using, Web3 in a, off way, including the fact that the initial investors can invest not just in fiat money, preferably more like, Ethereum or DAI or something that's on the blockchain. We are doing a lot of different things around incentivizing the film by creating NFT tokens that we're going to gamify and have people buy and bid on. There's going to be 100. The last one is going to be the first, they're going to be let out in stages so that, you get more if you're at the first stage, like there's 5 different stages to the last one where the bidder will be the winner of getting to see the film first. So all the 100 people will have a special showing, but the winner, like, who gets the, they're the gold ticket holders, and then there's the platinum ticket holder, which is the 100th NFT that we're going to be auctioning off. And they get to have the bragging rights of they're going to see the film first. As far as investors go, what we're going to do is we're going to shard our final film. Like, they will get a token that shows the contract of their investment, and also they will get a piece of the film, like a physical piece, when the film is finished, and that's going to be, it's basically promised in the original token that they get for their investment. So, and along with the fact that as time goes by, we're going to have a social token, which we've already created, but we're going to be releasing, and it's called Flix. And that token is to sort of build a community around filmmaking, not just documentary filmmaking, but video art, music videos, experimental films, anything that, the platform Ephemera is starting to do that kind of stuff with experimental video art, but this is kind of like more of and educational videos as well. So we're going to, with this social token, what we want to end up doing is creating a fund, and the film is the anchor for the price, for the cost of the social token, which I have no idea what that's going to be yet. But so this social token will be based on the film itself, the value of the social token. We want to create a community around that token. And we also want to create a fund for future filmmakers that we would be funding through that token.
Wow.
So that next year around this time, somebody else will be making a film using our Flix token as a that they get. We're going to have a DAO, and people are going to vote on which projects are going to be accepted and all that kind of stuff, so that by a year after the film is done, which we're hoping will be the spring of 2021, we'll start having festivals. So whatever other films have been made, we're going to have the Flix Fest, and we're going to have that for 3 years and try to build the ecosystem that way. So that's, I think I've covered all of the ways we're using Web3. So,
man, you threw a lot in there. That's fascinating. And I think especially, just to, at the end of it, the part with the DAO and having film festivals around it is really a next step that is so needed, because we were talking a lot about music yesterday with a lot of different people, and that ecosystem is just starting. But I'd have to, and even we had some film with desktop cinema, so these are just these blossoming ecosystems that are, I think, looking at art, because art is the easiest way to quantify a digital creative asset. It's a picture or a video, and it's a thing, right? So now that worked, these other, ecosystems like film, like you're doing, can look at that and then just extrapolate and say, well, if it worked for that, let's take it to that next level. And I think I can only imagine what film will be on the blockchain in, say 2 years from now. Even, you doing the DAO is going to open up. I think it sounds like it'll help people who aren't as blockchain savvy kind of get ushered into the space and have a community built in around it, which might make them feel, more at ease for taking this quote unquote risk that they're not ready for. So that's really, really cool. Congratulations. That's a wonderful move.
Yeah. And like everybody that we've talked to has been so open and receptive to it, including, people wanting to put, to help fund the film and things like that. So it's really nice to be so, like here in Canada, when one of the reasons that we decided to go this way is because here in Canada, when you make a documentary film, first of all, you have to have before you can apply for any other funding, you have to have a broadcaster or a distributor. And that takes, you go to the television station and then they have their meeting like, 4 times a year. And then they just, and there's all these people clamoring and does it fit in with their program or not or whatever. And it just takes a long time to actually begin making the film. Whereas now, because our budget is quite low in terms of, a regular documentary budget, because we're not traveling or anything like that, it's a lot easier. Like we can already start, working on the film, and we don't need to rely on some broadcaster or some gatekeeper to tell us, well, yeah, you could go ahead, and then it takes, another couple of months to find, to get the rest of the funding, usually from government grants. And in Canada, it's just like so much paperwork. I did a film about child soldiers in Uganda, and we got a majority of our funding from the Soros Foundation, which is now part of the, what's the name of the film festival? Sundance Film Festival. That's what it's part of. They sort of merged. And I think the bulk of our funding came from them. And we wrote one page and they just deposited the money in our bank account like a couple of weeks later. Whereas with all the Canadian funding, we had to fill out all these forms, and there was a stack of paper like this, and we'd get like a tenth of the and then you had to do that for every single funder. And I just found that because it's all government, most of the funding in Canada for film is government run. There's so much bureaucracy, and I'm one of these people that hates bureaucracy and just wants to go ahead and do something. So in this case, we can just go ahead and do it. Like, we have the tools, we have the computer, we're doing the networking, we're finding the people, and there's just some amazing people that are going to be in the film. And I can't tell you who they are yet because we want to sort of roll out. The first promo piece we did was an introduction, and we're going to, each person we're interviewing, we're going to roll out one little promo piece for each thing. So we're, spreading out the love, basically.
That's awesome. Now, I'm not putting you on the spot. Do you have any teasers or anything that you guys have that you're able to share with us, or is it still early in that stage?
Well, we do have the first piece that I just finished last night.
Oh, wow.
That I did you get the link for that for the YouTube video?
I could check. You can share your screen, or I can pull it up. It's up to you.
It's probably better. I'm not that used to Zoom yet, so if you have the link, okay. It's like 2 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, I got it here. Yep. Give me 1 sec. I'll get it queued up.
Okay.
Okay, let me know if you can see the screen.
I can see it, yes.
Okay, so let's, and I'm not sure what the audio is going to do, so let's just go for it and see
Okay.
what happens.
Oh shit, I'm still filming. Here we are on the beach of this beautiful place where we live. And we're talking about our film, I Want My NFT. So today I decided that I was going to ask Jason, who's right over here, to tell us what an NFT is.
Not for trouble.
No,
Not for trouble.
Try again.
One of those things that doesn't really exist but exists. Is that it?
Sort of. Okay, fine.
All right. Don't forget to follow us. You go to our website, iwantmynft.com. If you want your NFT, you know where to go. And on Twitter and Instagram, I want my NFT.
You know, maybe I'll turn it off.
That is like, here's the frame, and here's the top.
I love it. That's awesome.
We just thought
So that's,
we could be pretty funny. I mean,
yeah, that was, I love it. I love Vandal's humor. I love the dry humor. I'm much the same way.
it's like, you know, I've been making films for a long time, but I've never been the camera person. So, and I'm not very good at being a camera person, mainly because like when I go out and stuff, I can't see the, like, you know, I used to, when I started at school, I did photography and, you know, I took a lot of pictures. As soon as I started having to wear glasses, I can't see close up anymore. So when I turn on the camera on my phone, I just kind of guess and hope that it's going to focus all right. Because anyway, and then of course I did this typical thing that most people do, even though I shouldn't have to do it, is that I left the camera on in my pocket. And so that's what the whole, you know, it's this joke of like, here she's walking around with the camera on in her pocket and then she pulls it out. It's like, I forgot to turn it off, you know? So yeah, that's my great filmmaking skills in terms of camera person, which I will wholly admit I'm not very good at camera work. So.
Well, I think it's good that you have a team because, you know, anytime, you know, when people try to take it all on themselves, there's always that part where maybe they're not as, you know, maybe it's not their thing, but they do it and you can tell. So I think it's great that, you know, you have Vandal, who's, you know, handling all that. And, you know, the two of you together, I can tell it's going to be an awesome film.
Mm-hmm.
So and at the end, I thought it was great how you were teasing the different people in it. So you have 12 artists. You have some critics as well,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is great to throw the contrarian view because, you know, that's kind of the first thing that, you know, all of us are talking about how amazing it is and, you know, how this is the future. But at the same time, I think it's good to see the other side of the coin, just to see how, you know, maybe it's somebody who is a critic at the start, but at the end they're not, or maybe they're just staunch saying this thing isn't going to work. I think that's a great, well-rounded way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you find those types of people? Are you talking to people outside of the crypto space or?
there actually came up in with the people that we talked to, that some people have, I think it's more, the people we've talked to, it's more about criticizing the echo space and like every time you have a group of people together, there's always going to be some kind of drama.
Sure.
So I think it, and like what if the internet fails, or like where does everything go, kind of thing. Like there's the end of the world theorists and things like that, where it's like, what happens if, and people are like, well, if that happens, it's not going to matter whether your art is saved on the blockchain or not, because
Sure.
I think people are going to have more to worry about than that. So we'll see. It's kind of stems out of through people we've talked to who have actually made criticisms about the problems and things like that we have. So it's not some guy from outside of the space going this is like what's his name, can't remember, the big major investor who lives in the Midwest somewhere.
Oh, like Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like we interviewed Warren Buffett about cryptocurrency or
Sure.
something like that.
Yeah.
So, although it would be kind of interesting if we could get an interview with Warren Buffett. So,
Sure. Yeah,
but,
I mean that would be your drama, that would
yeah,
be...
yeah.
And I think there's a lot of I remember back when CryptoKitties was really popping, and it was in that FOMO stage of the market going crazy. CryptoKitty went for like 140K. I think it's really interesting. I've had this theory, I've been in NFTs for 2.5 years, I guess now, and it's kind of like there's the cycle of the market, but there's also like an inverse cycle of how that affects art. And it's this weird thing where you're almost like looking at the market to see how the NFT market could do. Like you're almost like opposite forecasting. So I think there's this crazy dynamic that, like, it's hard enough to sell a piece of art in general to anybody, but it's even harder when the currency you're using is like flying to the moon, and no one, like, your art could still be the best thing ever, but the collector's like, nope, sorry, my that Ethereum is now worth 4 times as it was last week, so I'm not buying your art. I think there's these crazy dynamics that the artists do and maybe do not understand that are happening around them, that are way harder than simply, I say simply, like getting into a gallery show and having your art framed and selling the art and shipping it. Even though we've gotten rid of a lot of those issues, there's still these other things that you wouldn't have to ever worry about. Like the US dollar, I don't even know if it's that stable, but at least someone thinks their $20 is worth $20. And in this space, it's the Wild West. It's super, super nuts. So yeah.
I actually found, like, in starting to sell my art, that it sold more when Ethereum was high than when it wasn't. And I have this to say, because I figured this out for any other potential investors out there, that you would get more bang for your buck investing in this film when Ethereum is high than you would, because we only need, we've related it to fiat, and this,
Sure.
This is how much we need. So, like, if you bought a bunch of Ethereum when Ethereum was like $30 or whatever, and you've got like tons of Ethereum, it's like a no-brainer for you. Yep. Like, you invest, and it's like $600 or whatever you invested in a film, and if it goes down, your investment is still the same. So I'd like to relay that to any other potential investors out there, that it's better for you to buy into investing into this film now.
Yeah,
Ethereum is high.
No, it's a perfect point. Yeah, you're exactly spot on, because, and I think you're right, where it's either fiat or DAI based, so that they can. You nailed it. Yeah, it's. I think on the other side of it, some some people are looking at, from my end as an artist, like things on Super Rare are priced in ether, right? So there's this influx thing where like, is my art worth a quarter of the value in ether because it's so much higher? Or do you stick to the ether price? So I think it's smart for you to be dealing with the stable dies and the USDs. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, so tell me just about, so you also saw in there that you have platforms on there. So you're also featuring like kind of the marketplace side of the
Yes.
sales as well.
Yes, the marketplace and minter, like places where you can mint. Obviously, there are way more than 12, and some of them, I think on the minting side we have about 6 platforms, uh, and we couldn't do all of them. So it was just a matter of, you know, we decided who was first, kind of thing, and then kind of go from there. And how the difference between a platform where they curate the artists and a platform where there's no curation. You've got 10 million people. um, you know they talk about decentralized, and the fact that curation, all of a sudden it's not decentralized, it's centralized because people are choosing the artists. But I find that going on a platform where there's so much stuff, it's just so hard. Like, even if they have an art section, it's like people who are doing nude selfies are putting their stuff under an art section. And it's like, I'd like to be able just, and part of me likes the gallery idea, because at least when I'm looking at art, they are actually artists. And I'm not saying, you don't necessarily have to be trained and go to art school, but, because I went to art school and studied art history and all that kind of stuff, I kind of think that I have an eye. I have this argument with Vandal all the time about, what is art, and do you have to uh, go to art school, or like, there are artists that we're interviewing that didn't go to art school but are just amazing artists. And obviously I personally picked those people because I liked their work, and I think that I have taste. But then, again, with Vandal, I have these arguments about, like, what is taste. Like, I say, oh, I don't like that piece. It's like, well, that doesn't mean that everybody doesn't. It's kind of, because art is so um, objective, I guess it's hard. But there are, I don't know, you could tell some, even in music, like there's a fad. People buy this, it's like a one hit wonder kind of person. And then there are people who are really, who are good musicians, and they last,
Yeah.
the time span. So
I think that, given where we're at in the infancy of NFTs, there's only been a couple genres that have come in. I think that the vast, I did the same thing. I took probably 5 or 8 art history classes, 3 hours a session, and you're just, soaking in so many different styles that when I take a step back and I look at, what's in the marketplace now, it's, it's not trends, but I would say it's like current technology. The people who are tech forward, your 3D motion graphics people, they're
mhm.
built for this. They've been doing daily drops for, someone like Beeple has done daily drops for 13 years straight. So him coming into NFTs, that's his bread and butter. Like, that's easy. I think that we're going to see, photography is still highly under represented in the space.
Mhm.
There's definitely, people are coming in, and there's different exchanges that I'm seeing, or marketplaces that are, maybe more heavily focused on photography, which I think is important. But there's also, you know, huge anomalies like, let's say watercolor. Some people are just into watercolor, and that might not be the current trend in NFTs, but I can tell you, as soon as this becomes a larger thing, there's going to be that need for maybe a marketplace that only sells watercolors, because like you said, if you're not into nude selfies, then why would you want to go through those? And whether that's the current platforms working on their filtering, or just having a spot where it's, mywatercolornft.com, go there and you just know you're only going to find watercolors. Maybe those are some of the solutions that need to be developed, because we don't want to turn people off if they go looking for, if you're into 3D motion graphics and you have to go through all these nude selfies and whatever you're not into. I think it's great to bring up because it's so new that I think half the time the platforms are trying to develop the tech to work properly enough where there's smart contracts and automatic payments. But once you start getting into curation and what the buyer really wants, that's a whole nother can of worms. And I can only imagine being a platform and having to on the fly learn how to filter and make it a better experience. So we're all just in the Wild West. It's really kind of exciting to be a guinea pig. It's like, well, it's not perfect, but I'd rather be here than not be here. So it's a give and take for sure.
And that's basically what we're trying to capture in the film, is that Wild West pioneering thing. Like one person we talked to is like, this is never going to be like this ever again.
Yeah.
We are like, even me, I didn't come in right at the beginning, but it's still the beginning now. Even in the time that I joined, I think Rarible just appeared. There was hardly anybody on it. To now, there are already so many new minting platforms, and there's so many new things. Like, things happen so fast, which is another reason why we decided to go this route in making the film and funding the film, is that, if we did it the traditional way and waited for a broadcaster or a distributor, we'd be making the film next year.
Sure.
And by next year, things could have changed so much that, you wouldn't even know it. And, also when you're talking about the art that's like photography has just come in, but there's video art too, which is what I've done. And I wanted to also comment on the fact that the idea of people wanting, this is the hard thing for people to grasp, people that I know that aren't in the scene. But what do you get? I can't hang it on my wall. I can't put it in my garden as a statue. Like, it doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
And I had that problem with my video art in the 80s, where people are, well, why would I buy that? Like, what am I going to do? Watch it on my TV? It's like, people see TVs are not places to display art, even though they're trying to act like they're art displays. They're not. It's I think once somebody makes something incredible where you can display things, it's gonna, they're starting to do that, but like, all screens are the same size. There's different sizes, but they're standards. And people who make art don't just do a canvas that's, 8 by 12, 11 and a half inches, the size of a paper. They do the canvas, whatever they feel like the size of the art is going to be. So that's not going to display very well on one of those, pre-made monitors. So I think it's kind of, I think that could be a game changer in terms of like the displaying, and the game changer for getting people who aren't in this space into the space. Like, we understand it, and it's this great world, and we can, we're talking to converts already. Like, I'm talking to you, you're already here. I want to talk to people who aren't here, and not just other artists, but people who might be interested in collecting stuff, because that's what this space needs more of, is collectors. So that, art can be appreciated. So, and I think art is, obviously I'm an artist, is something the world needs more than war, or banks, or, whatever. So.
And art leaves a legacy, and it's not even the artist who makes it at a certain point, like we all have a certain amount of time here. but once we're gone, those creations we make can live on. And I think especially once a collector understands that it's actually safer than buying a huge canvas that you need to have in like deep storage in a bunker, like hoping there's not going to be a fire or a flood. Even like apocalypse aside, there's just like house fires. There's just like shit that happens, and you don't want to be. I think I was having this talk with Sats Moon last night. I don't want to be running down the street with my family and like an armful of like framed art. Like that is not part of the equation, so it's like, well, now it can actually just be on my wallet and I can just not worry about it. And I think also, like you're saying, with the standards on the viewing devices, it's that holy grail of the blockchain connected frame, so that it's not just getting a JPEG and uploading it to your frame. It's having that frame connect to the blockchain, so that's the true. When that happens, I think that will very quickly usher in a new mass adoption wave.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
I was just picturing, instead of running down the street with your art under your arm, you would just have your hard drives instead.
Yeah, exactly. And I have like 10 hard drives. So like,
and they're this small right now, right? Like we had an editing company, and when I first started editing, we had to edit offline, kind of like really low grade, because it's the storage problem. So we had these 9 gig drives. They were like this big. They weighed about 15 pounds, 20 pounds, 9 gigs, and they cost like $2,000 a drive. And in the end, like just over a couple of years, we were using them as door stoppers because, and now it's like, how many gigs?
So this is a great example. This was my external drive when I was in college. So, I mean, I wasn't in college a long time ago, but it was like 15 years ago. So I guess it was a while. And this at the time was like, I'm never going to fill this thing up. And I think it might have been, it looks like maybe I don't even know, maybe 120 gigs, maybe something. Yep. And it's like, I was like, oh, this is fine. I am having a hard time even connecting this because it doesn't have like the right adapter.
I have one of those.
Yeah. I'm like going to like Salvation Army, digging through their like old wire bins, looking for like a connector. But it's like, that's the thing, is like, as soon as we can get free of even the hard drive, that's becoming archaic. That'll be the next paradigm. So that's funny, a little tangent there.
Yeah. Well, so it's crazy. I wanted to actually add one more thing, talking about artists, that I didn't mention, that I think is kind of important in the film. Like, the film isn't just going to be talking heads. We've decided that we are going to, all the artists in the film, almost all of them now have agreed to be part of this, where we are going to be doing a collaboration with the artists in the film that I'm going to record. It's going to be part of the film. The initial meetings where we're going to decide what the collaboration is going to be, like what subject matter, to each artist going off and making their own personal piece of art, to getting it minted, to having an auction. And that will make really interesting. You can see the process of how it's going to go, like the process of putting your art on the blockchain in an interesting way, with some amazing artists that are going to be doing the different layers for this collaboration. So
that's awesome. Wow. So it's multi-tiered. And are those going to be released around this? Is that all going to be released at the same time as the film? Is it like a joint launch?
No, because we're filming the auction. So it will be part of the film. It will be released ahead of time, obviously. But yeah.
Which is great. That's great promotion for the film. I think that's smart marketing. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. I mean, my thing was just that I didn't want to have a film that was just a bunch of talking heads. Sure. And even interjecting, artworks and stuff like this. This is actually like a process, and people get to see the process. So that's what I, I'm finding interesting, and the artists are amazing. So it's going to be fun for me to do too, because I get to work with all of these people that I really like their stuff. So it's like,
and everyone's eccentric in their own special way, right? It's just it's not going to be cookie cutter because it's a whole bunch of artists, right? You know it's going to get a little zany, which I think is just in your favor. It's not going to be boring because it's I'm stoked. And we have a message. I believe this is from Vandal. I would say someone's calling you mom. So I think
okay. I don't have any more kids, so yeah, it will be him.
He says let's tell them the first person we interviewed. So he's prodding you.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, the first person that we interviewed is Stefan from Mag NFT.
Sweet.
That's who we've interviewed. Yeah. So our next promo piece, other than the piece that you showed just now, which I hope is in sync, because when I watched it, my voice was not in sync with the video, but I have a feeling it's just because it
must have been the lag.
Yeah, it was the lag. But yeah, so our next promo piece will be him, because he's the first one we've interviewed, and like our interviews actually just started on Monday, and we spread them out. Even though there's only 34 people, we spread them out over 3 weeks to give people enough time and options as to when they can have the interview. So yeah, and after that, basically I'm going to start editing, and that's going to be the long part of it, because we're going to have a lot of hours of footage, and maybe decide. Right now it's a feature length 90-minute film. Maybe by then we'll have decided it's going to be a series or a 2-part thing or something, because there's just so much stuff, and there's so like I said, our first interview with Stefan, and he had so many things to say and interesting things, and obviously if it's only going to be 90 minutes, it's going to be like 3 minutes a person.
I was doing the math right now. You're going to be burning through people. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it might end up being confusing for people if they just see this one blip of one person, and it goes on. And the artists are a big range of different kinds of art, obviously, that I like, but different styles, different, AI artists and motion graphics artists and previous painter artists. So there's a huge of different styles. And I don't know if any of these artists would ever have thought of doing a collab with the other artists, even though, they know one another or whatever. It's going to be interesting. The final piece is going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I did a major collab. It was Async's first piece. It was the first supper piece, and that was 13 artists. And I can tell you, just that alone was fascinating to see, what people decided to do. Someone had like the linen on the table, and it was like, whoa, that's wild. I would have never thought to do that. So I think it's going to spur new thoughts of the people inside of it. So that's just a residual added value. So super exciting. Yeah. So we're coming up on the hour mark.
Okay.
It's flown by. I wanted to see, let's see. I want to definitely have you tell people how to follow this. So how would people stay connected with you?
They could follow I Want My NFT at I Want My NFT on Twitter, on Instagram. We just made this YouTube channel yesterday, so and that video isn't public yet; it's unlisted, but we will be adding that. We have a website called iwantmynft.com, and those are basically the. And don't forget, on the website is a link to the Gitcoin page, which has just come live like at the same time we started this interview, for people to, anybody else outside or whoever that we haven't talked to, or, to fund the film that way as well. So
awesome. Yeah. After this, why don't you shoot me a quick email with some of those links?
Sure.
And I'll throw them into our Twitter feeds just so people can find that as well.
Okay, no problem.
Cool. Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure. Best to you. I'll be staying close watch on this to see how it comes out, and I'm proud for you guys. So nice work, and it's much needed. So I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thanks for interviewing me.
Of course.
I
Yeah.
really appreciate it. I'm
Yeah.
not that great an interviewee. I'm usually the interviewer. So
Oh no, you handled it like a boss. It was awesome.
okay. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And
Cool. Take care.
talk to you
All right.
soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.